Today, I will guide a meditation, and then Emily will lead us in mindful movement. And then we'll have a Dharma talk and some small group sharing. So for the meditation, I invite you to make yourself comfortable. Care for yourself. You might put your feet on the ground if you're in a chair and elongate the spine. Allowing the spine to aerate, allowing space between the vertebrae. We want to be straight and not rigid. Letting the attention drop into the body like a stone descending through the surface of a pond, falling, falling into its depths. Taking a few long and slow breaths. Feeling the air going all the way in and then releasing it all the way out. Pausing just a moment at the end of the out breath. Allowing the breath to massage all the places it travels. Letting go of thoughts as best you can. Slowing thoughts. As you descend into the body. Breathing naturally now. Feeling the feet on the floor. And the chair or cushion. Supporting your backside, your body. and appreciating that it's Earth holding you. Holding you in its gravitational embrace. Holding all of us right now as a community. Allowing your bones and muscles and tissues to really let go. Trusting the earth to hold them. Sinking into the chair or cushion, your entire weight. And directing your attention through the body to any places of tightness or discomfort. Lingering there with a kindness. Inviting those places to release and letting them know in a gentle way it's okay. It's okay that you're tight or uncomfortable. You're part of the whole. You belong here. And imagining or sensing that you're cradling these tight places in your hands, like you're holding a baby. And noticing places in the body that are spacious and relaxed. Returning to the breath. and sensing the breath, nurturing the tight places and the open places. Breath is life. It's gathering all of the disparate aspects of you into the whole. You might notice a place where the breathing feels most centered. The focal point of your breathing sensations. Making that the settling place. A refuge. Where your intention can rest. Sensing that gathered here are all the parts of yourself that you're aware of and those that you are not. Gathered in safety. Where there is no part unwelcomed. And when the attention wanders, just welcome it back like it's a good puppy that's gone off for a little while. Hey, buddy, I'm glad you're back. When you have a breath or two or three where the mind is focused, recognizing that. Whatever sensations arise, just feeling them, not searching for sensations to feel, just allowing whatever naturally arises. Abiding in this settled place. If there's any pressure or striving or wanting to do it right. Any agitation in the heart or mind at all. Just allowing that to be. Giving that space. Sending care. I care about this suffering. Sensing that there's a wide field of caring around you. That striving comes from a desire to be safe and happy. And this desire comes from your inherent goodness and care. Your Buddha nature might be experienced as anxiety or open-heartedness, but it is at your core. Breathing into this core. With tenderness and gratitude. Welcoming the mind back to the present moment with kindness, with friendliness. Recognizing the sincere intention that brought you to this room, to this community. Honoring that move toward liberation. Appreciating the teachings, the community here. And your innate goodness. And allowing some space for that appreciation. So it can grow right here, right now. So the theme for today is how to aerate our life on and off the cushion. We benefit and we're open to joy when we can hold ourselves, our thoughts, our views, our desires, our meditation, and even our identity lightly, openly. That's the only way that we can be open and receptive to what the next moment brings. And self-compassion is an important part of practicing holding lightly. we're conditioned to habitually manipulate our world to make ourselves more secure, comfortable, or happy. And that's not a cynical view. It's right and good to care for ourselves. It comes out of an inherent sense of compassion for ourselves, for our own being. And that comes from an innate Buddha nature. Compassion for others flows out of caring for ourselves. And of course, many of the ways that we try to achieve happiness aren't effective. The Buddha taught that clinging to what's pleasurable brings suffering. And yet, we are conditioned to do that. And so we have to, through awareness and self-compassion, temper that impulse to manipulate the world for a desired outcome. So, for instance, when we meditate, most of us probably do it in a way that we think will benefit us. We try to be concentrated on the breath. And we do that with a kind of aggression very often, a kind of forcefulness. We chide ourselves when we think, and we kind of sit down, try to zoom in on the breath, and don't really, and haven't been taught to gather ourselves, or at least it hasn't been emphasized, to gather all of ourselves, not all of our, all aspects of ourself, energies of ourself, and settle. And then we judge ourselves when we don't focus on the breath. We get terribly frustrated. And then for many, meditation becomes a glum business because we think that our attention just has to be drilled into the breath. And we sense that we're failing when that doesn't happen. And that leads many people to give up on meditation. Part of this dynamic is that a practitioner has enjoyed moments of concentration, and those moments can be wonderful and can lead to very relaxed and open and even extraordinary mind states. And so that makes us want to do it again and again. Every sit has to be like that. And that's a form of clinging, and it's not beneficial. Mindfulness meditation is broader than that. A sit where you have a very distracted mind, a monkey mind that goes from thought to thought, can be beneficial. When you become aware that that's happening, for one thing, you're learning how the mind works. And then if you watch, you'll see how you respond, how you feel. Frustration, irritation, judgment. And you can be curious and watch and see how that feels in the body. And the container for all that is self-compassion. We hold all that with self-compassion. And we practice that because it's not automatic. Wanting what made us feel good or what we think we're supposed to do, and being frustrated and judging, that's more automatic. And accepting what a given sit is like with curiosity and compassion, that's a practice. Gil Fronsdale is now offering an extensive series of dharmets and guided meditations on concentration practice, which is called samadhi. That's the Pali word for concentration. And he emphasizes that striving and forcing oneself, aggression, isn't beneficial. He suggests that we come to a sit with a sense that we are entering a sacred time. And he advises that we mark that with a sense of ritual. Perhaps we designate a certain place in the house for practice, or we have a shawl we put on, or incense, or anything that's meaningful. And how we practice samadhi without force, with purpose and compassion, is also how we practice mindfulness off the cushion. So when we sit, we want to experiment with the gathering of ourselves, allowing time for that, gathering attention, gathering supportive attitudes, encouragement for ourselves. And we will notice that we're striving and compulsive, perhaps, because we're human, and we work with that. Off the cushion, we behave that way very often. We were trained to approach life in a sort of striving, hardworking way. It's how we view our careers, our work life, and maybe even our family life and relationships, because it's hard to have a style in one aspect of our life and then close it off. It bleeds into our entire way we relate to life. And a striving mentality can be subtle in our personal life. It can manifest in judgment in clinging to an opinion or view. And so, as we go through life and maneuver to achieve the outcome that we think is best, it's often not centered solely in some egocentric self interest. It might be with our families that we want our children to follow a custom or a rule that we think is most beneficial, like being considerate of others, or the way we relate to family and friends could be based on a worry about them. I drive around town frequently anxious and lamenting that so many people ride a bike or scooter without wearing a helmet. So, in some way, it may be egocentric because I want them to wear a helmet so that I don't worry about them. But, we are intertwined and we're constantly interacting with the world, trying to get safety and happiness. Yogi Mingyur Rinpoche says, this drive to help ourselves and care for ourselves reflects our inner goodness and compassion. And when we really micro dissect how this plays out in life, we see it often works best for us when we can, in the moment, give up an idea or a desire for a particular outcome, because that's the only way we can be open to what each unpredictable moment brings. Here's one example. Say you're at a Dharma event with your family, and because there are a lot of important people that practice and study the Dharma, you know that there will be people who work in a field that you want a job in. So you think you need to network because you need a job. Maybe you've been critical of yourself because you haven't been working hard enough to get a new job. And you see, oh, there's a woman who runs the nonprofit that you would love to work for. And there's a spot on the sofa next to her. So you kind of home in on her. And on the way, you walk in front of your daughter who's on another sofa. And she looks up at you and pats the empty cushion next to her. So she wants you to sit down there. Is it possible to let that impulse of ambition and taking care of yourself, to let that go for a few minutes so you can be with your daughter? Can you do that? And if you do sit down next to your daughter, who knows what will happen? She might need you. She might open up to you in a way she doesn't normally, or maybe not. But can you let go of the outcome in order to sort of follow the beauty that's offered in that moment? And a lot of times the choices and that are available to us we don't even see because we're so intent on our plan or our outcome. And all this is not easy because to let go of what we think will serve us is like surrendering into new territory, into a way of being that we haven't planned for. And the mind and the ego is very forceful with what it thinks you need. So we need patience and self compassion as we practice this. Sometimes our views can be difficult to let go of or release. It can come up in friendship. It's human to sort of assert or withhold in ways to get things to be the way that you think they should be. And sometimes we think the other person themselves should be a certain way. Can we approach friendship in an airier way? We'll do a reflection. Closing the eyes or looking downward with a soft gaze. And identify a point of conflict with a friend, maybe a 2 or 3 out of a scale of 1 to 10. Remembering how it happened and what you were thinking and feeling. And feeling into the body, into the physicality of the moment. And breathing into that. Was there a point where you felt things should be different? That your friend should behave in a different way or should be a different way? Nothing you feel is wrong here. And if yes, how did this feeling start? Was it an idea or a gut feeling? Just being curious. There's no right answer. And as you're feeling this situation, can you relax your hands right now? Relax the muscles in the palm and the fingers. Really letting the weight of your hands release onto the surface where they rest. Feeling the sensations there. And imagine opening your hand or hands and releasing your thoughts about the situation. It doesn't mean that your view is wrong. You're just releasing it for now. Sensing or imagining that this view is floating away up in the sky. Resting in non view for a moment. We all carry views too tightly and our identities. It's it's very common, and it's what this practice is about. It's why we practice on a cushion and in daily life. Identity can be very difficult to loosen our grip on. When I was a student in law school, I found a housemate of mine in tears one morning at the end of the semester, first year, first semester. And she was sure she would flunk out and they would kick her out of school. And life as she knew it would cease. She had been Phi Beta Kappa in undergrad and a concert pianist, and she always excelled. And I remember her eyes filling with tears. And when I tried to talk to her about it, she shook her head and she just couldn't talk about it beyond saying she was sure she would fail. And she was grasping with a lot of fear and aversion toward the person that she would be if she failed. She was a compulsive studier, and it all resulted in misjudgment and delusion because she didn't fail. She was a great student. She won an award. And it just illustrates how we were trained, and we probably train our younger generation to compete, and we all lose ourselves by viewing our life through the eyes of society, through the eyes of success and achievement. Even a Tibetan master who practiced meditation from as a child, so he practiced for decades. Even he clung to his identity. He wrote Yonggi Mingyur Rinpoche wrote a memoir called In Love with the World. And he had experienced the practices at the highest levels non-duality, very intense levels of concentration. He'd been attended to and tutored his entire life. He was the abbot of a large monastery. He had never been alone. And one night, without telling anyone, he left the monastery in the middle of the night. He snuck out to live for 3 years the life of a sadhu, a wandering monk who gives up worldly concerns to live among the poor in the streets. So he gets on a crowded train. This is in India, in the lowest class train. And he's trying to sleep on the floor with other people, and everyone's packed in. He was shocked at how uncomfortable he was, at his aversion to the closeness of the other people, to their smells, to the dirt, and to the rats that scurried among them. He was wearing the red robes that connote that he was, an honored Rinpoche. And he felt or imagined everyone staring at him. He imagined that they thought he was pretending to be poor. And he felt pathologically embarrassed and paranoid. And now, decades later, he writes that when he got to the trains on the next end of the destination, he was on the train station floor trying to sleep and live. And he could see fear rising up like steam into the opening between me and others. Relating to others as other turned them into omens of calamity. For fear to be eliminated, I would have to release myself from my identity. But he couldn't do it. It was hard, and he couldn't bring himself to change out of his maroon Tibetan robes. He writes that his identity was solid and it imprisoned him. Even though intellectually he knew that his identity was illusory and that his constructed self had created it. But still, he eventually had to give up sleeping on the station floor with the masses and rented a cot in the station dormitory. And his awareness, he was clinging to that, was key to his journey, as was self-compassion that led him to decide he'd done the best he could for that night and go into the dormitory. And so the point is that if Yongey Mingyur Rinpoche, who had practiced non-duality, the interconnectedness of all things, and had realized the empty, luminous aspect of the mind, could be imprisoned by his identity, it's universal. We're all subject to it. And the things that we cling to, like views and identities and relationships, they're like flags that we plant in the ground to show that we exist as a separate being and we're important. And they're all potential points of suffering. But they don't have to be. We can have an identity without clinging to it. And recognizing our impermanence helps. I mean, we all know that everything changes all the time. Intellectually, we know that. But really appreciating it in our cells, that comes perhaps gradually or sometimes after a tragic or traumatic event. It's like losing somebody who dies. It helps us realize that we're a process. And it makes it less appealing or less enticing to construct. It just lets us let go a little bit of the idea that we need to be a certain kind of person, which society views a certain kind of way, because we know it's temporary and it will change. So, awareness that we're clinging and holding tightly helps us. That's the first thing, is to be aware this is suffering. And when we're sitting and striving to concentrate, we can do this. We can have awareness of the suffering, of the tightness in the belly or chest. Then just say, ouch, this is painful. Hey, there's clinging here. I'm holding on to this, whatever it is, fill in the blank, to this idea of having a great meditation or being a perfect mother or being a perfect traffic planner, whatever we're holding. We can have self-compassion for the suffering that it brings, not blaming ourselves. It's human to cling. Even Yonggi Mingyur Rinpoche clung and saying, I care about this suffering. And in a tender way, asking yourself, can I let go a little? Just a little for right now. And we practice letting go with compassion.